Learn to embrace your body and stop being ashamed. Hi everyone, welcome to Girl Talk. Good to have you with us again this evening in this hot heat wave.
Sweltering.
We are sweltering. Sorry about this little device, but we need something to kind of
A little air conditioning unit.
melt us. I know, cute, isn't it? But it's good to have you with us tonight for another interesting subject on Girl Talk. But before we do, I'll get Danny to introduce you to our topic tonight, and then we'll introduce our guests.
So today we are going to be talking about something that I think is a really prominent topic amongst women. Statistics show that women are seen to be the single ones.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time they are
Yep.
predominantly more single than men. So tonight we want to talk about the waiting room. So this means the waiting period between transitioning to being single to married, or possibly never marrying, and you may remain single for the rest of your life. But we want to just explore that and just kind of take that subject apart. But before we do, let's introduce ourselves and also our guests that we have tonight in the studio. So I'm Danny.
I'm Erica.
I'm Chantel.
And I'm Laurie.
And it's great to have you with us. So let's just begin. Obviously, Shani, we've asked you to come on.
Yeah.
So before we...
Yeah.
She's not sure what's going to come. But we wanted to just, before we go into Shani sharing her story, and obviously why we've invited her here, we want to talk to you about some of the things that we feel like are great fillers, I would say, to obviously this period of being in this waiting period. I'm a firm believer that, you know, you should, whether you're married or single, whatever phase in your life that you are, you should live the fullest life possible.
Absolutely.
And I think some of those things are traveling, you know, doing activities, like you don't even need to leave the country. I mean, we've literally been forced into not being able to really leave the country.
Yes.
So we've been forced to, you know, use our imagination and do things. But I really believe in that we should live a really full and fulfilled life. So we're going to share with you some of our favourite things and favourite places to go. So take notes. We've travelled extensively, so we can definitely give you some top tips of where to go in the world. So Laurie, do you want to start and share your top tips of where you would recommend them to go in the world?
I absolutely love Cancun in Mexico.
Oh, me too.
Yes. Their sands on the beach are beautiful. If you want to chill out, you can chill out. If you want to go shopping, you can go shopping. The food is... Yeah.
They've got a great Ruth Chris steakhouse there in Cancun. Amazing.
And if you want an amazing place to stay, this is literally...
Are we going to give that one away?
Absolutely. I'm trying
That's our favourite.
I'm trying to make my husband take me here. It's a gorgeous hotel. We discovered it, I think, the last time we were in Cancun.
Amazing.
It's called Nizuc, so Nizuc.
Oh my god.
It is literally...
You do not want to leave.
The most incredible, and I've stayed in a lot of places around the world, but it's literally one of the most amazing hotels that I have ever stayed in. Their spa is literally to die for.
Yes.
They're taking us there now.
I know you get into this fantasy because you can't get there physically. But we did a spa there.
We done like a couple spa, so it was me and my mum.
And they literally take you from one station to the next, and they scrub you, and they put you through all this water therapy. We were like,
they exfoliate you. They put hair mask in your hair.
We didn't want to leave. And I actually did snorkeling for the first time, and it was fantastic. The water is absolutely still. Wow. It's just beautiful. You can do that board, I don't know what they call it, you know, where you're like on that
paddleboarding.
Paddleboarding. It's so calm. And I went in with an instructor. It was just me and the instructor, and they take you out and you're snorkeling and you can see all the fish, and it was absolutely amazing. And the staff are like second to none. I mean, talk about top level of service and the food. Oh my gosh, the food. Yes, it ticked every box. Literally ticks every box. And kids, I remember Ashley was there, could not, which was great. Could not get him to leave kids club because they do so much with the kids.
Gosh.
They keep them there all day. So if you've got children, it's great. Even though they have single section, you can literally leave your kids in the club all day and just chill and have fun.
Okay, Shani, do you want to share with us your top favourite spot in the world?
In the world, apart from Ghana, go to Ghana. But aside from that, if you want to connect to the motherland, go to Ghana. But outside of that, I really loved Cuba. I was fortunate enough to. I was fortunate enough to go. Initially, it was on a school trip, and I went back subsequently 2 or 3 times afterwards. And what I love about visiting different places is the culture of a particular place and the history and you know, the political history, the religious history, the sorts of things that a country has been through in their growth and development and how that comes out in your experience as a tourist. So Cuba is really rich. I love the Spanish language, I love the Spanish people, and what I most loved about Cuba is the people were so welcoming and warm, and because Cuba traditionally people think it's in South America, it's actually a part of the Caribbean. So you've got the Caribbean food, you've got the Caribbean food influences, but you've got the South American, you've obviously got the sort of salsa dancing.
Well, one of our favourite restaurants in New York is Cuban. Oh my days, the food.
Really?
Victor's in New York. You must, I'm sorry. It's like if we're in New York, it's our go-to.
Amazing.
Their food
like
is
delicious.
You literally feel like you're going to pop until you close type of food.
The food is amazing. If you do go to Cuba, there's somewhere to walk alongside. It's called the Malecon, and that basically oversees the ocean, and it's beautiful. The beaches are stunning, and all in all, I think it's good for families. Although what I would say is there was one hotel that we were able to stay at, and if you're able to get a sort of a booking there, I think it was called the Nacional. Really, really beautiful hotel, and lots to do sort of within the grounds. There's so much to explore, and don't just stay in Havana. Havana's great, but there are other places that you can venture out to. So Cuba, for me.
It's definitely one on my list. Definitely. So Mum, where is your top spot?
Go to Jamaica. Seeing as Shani's plugging it. And I'm not just plugging Jamaica. I mean, we like to do that every year. Well, every opportunity. I wouldn't mind going more than once a year, but it is one of those places that you never run out of things to do, places to go. It's such a diverse island, and the food is amazing, and I'm not being biased. The food is delicious. I do like 2-3 hours a day workout just so that I can eat what I want, because the food is so good. And what I love about Jamaica, every time we go, there's more things that they've added that you can do. You can do horseback riding through the mountains, you can do horseback through the ocean, which I did. It was fantastic, riding a horse in the ocean. We did the rafting, like an hour and a half to 2 hours of rafting. We did quad biking up into the mountains.
Nice.
I mean, you can go on so many different tours, or you can just chill and just relax. And so, that's one of our favourite places to go, to Jamaica. You can go there as singles. You can go there with a group of friends, and you'll have so much fun. And the hotels are just so accommodating. I know where we stay, they have entertainment throughout the day. They put on shows, all kinds of stuff, so you're entertained whether you want to be a part of that or whether you just want to hire one of the taxis that allowed to come onto the premises of your hotel, and those ones are safe, or the hotel can book that for you, and you can go off on tours. We've been, one of the places I really wanted to go in Jamaica was Devonshire House ice cream. I had heard about it and I read about it, and we were staying over in Montego Bay, so we said, let's go to church in Kingston. So we get up at 4:30 in the morning to get ready, and we drove to Kingston, did church, and we headed straight to the ice cream place.
Good
my
plan.
God. They are open till I think midnight.
Wow.
Goodness.
And it's just packed.
Wow.
It's just packed. It was absolutely amazing. So yeah, Jamaica, guys.
Okay, so my top, I've got more than one.
Oh, wait.
I have got more
well.
than one. So I've got my favourite city break. Oh, it's between New York.
City.
I love New York.
New York, I know.
But also
Yeah.
Singapore is definitely up there as one of my favourites. It's so clean. And it's super safe. So even if you wanted to travel on your own, it's super safe. The people, again, are just so lovely and so helpful. I've been twice now. So I went first with Ashley, and then I went on my honeymoon last year. And it's just such a beautiful experience. They've got amazing hotels. The first time I stayed at Marina Bay Sands, so that's the one with the infinity pool that overlooks the whole of Singapore. It's absolutely stunning. So make sure you check that out.
And then our passports are ready to go.
And then for beach breaks, I have two. So before the Exhumers in the Bahamas became Insta famous for their swimming with the pigs, we used to go there all the way back in 2007, and it is literally the most breathtaking beaches you will ever find in the world.
It's that postcard, you know, the turquoise ocean
Yeah.
and the sugar white sand.
Yeah, the sand is
That's
literally
where-
so white that you have to wear sunglasses. It's blinding.
Wow.
It's so tranquil, so beautiful. And then the other one is in Bali. A lot of people are venturing towards Bali. It's so much fun. There's tons to do. We stayed at a number of different hotels, so we travelled all throughout Bali on our honeymoon, and the hospitality was incredible. One thing that I would recommend is use local travel agents, because they really know the country and they can give you the best local experience. And also we got loads of freebies thrown in as well. So
That's always good.
Exactly. So those are our top travel tips for you to go to. So definitely check them out.
Yeah, and you know, don't be scared to travel on your own. All we would say to you is be safe, be smart. Don't go to places, you know, and be walking the streets late at night. But I know we were in Venice earlier on this year before the lockdown came in, and there was a girl there in Venice on her own holidaying, and she kept coming up to couples, you know, can I share a gondola with you?
A lot of people do.
She was because she didn't want to
a good friend
quite
of mine.
expensive.
A good friend of mine. She travels. Noella, shout out. She travels extensively by herself, and she literally will just make friends when she gets to wherever she's going to, and she does it all the time. But she doesn't allow being single or waiting for somebody to go with her to allow her to see the world, and she loves to travel, so it's something you can do.
But that really helps to add to you as an interesting person, having that confidence, because you know sometimes we want that relationship, but we lack so much confidence and so much self-esteem, and we're looking for somebody who can be a crutch. And I know for me, for a long time, I hid behind my husband. I'd always like put him in front, and I'd be like behind him, and if he walked out the room, I'd be like, you know, panicking and falling apart inside. And I learned to find my confidence. I learned to find that place where, whether he's in the room or not, I'm good. I can talk to anybody. And it was a conscious decision that I made, that I really want to get over this. And so many singles, we want someone to come in and do all of that for us. And I just want to encourage you, find yourself while you're single, because if you don't know who you are and you haven't identified who you are, when you find somebody, you're just going to get buried. Your personality, who you are, is just going to get buried. It's going to get lost. So you need to discover who you are, discover what you love and like doing. Yeah.
Okay, so Shani,
Yes.
let's get to it.
Spotlight.
So, just talk us through a little bit your journey. Obviously, I know for you, this topic very much has been a part of your journey. You've had to deal with
The waiting room.
the waiting room and what that looks like. Can you just explain to everybody, just briefly, what that has been like for you, and what that has meant to you? What has the waiting room meant to you?
Sure. I think first and foremost, I'd say that this isn't the sort of the hard and fast cookie cutter model of what journeying as a single woman looks like. I think I've spoken to so many single women. Some of them are my friends, and everyone has got an individual and a unique path, and I think it's up to the individual to understand what to do whilst on that course, if that sort of makes sense. And for me, I think when I was asked to come on and share and sort of spend some time with you guys this evening, and I thought about the topic, the waiting room, and I thought about how perhaps when I was much younger, that was very much a part of what I saw that stage of my life as being, waiting. But I think as I've grown older and as I've matured, it's actually become less of a waiting room and more of a living room, because what I've discovered now is
good.
Yeah,
Really
because
good.
That nugget
right.
there.
Where's that notepad again?
The living
Yeah,
room.
it has, because
Yeah,
the thing
change
is,
that.
I think that the issue that I have, and maybe like I said with my younger self, and I'm speaking from my own perspective, but you know, the danger is that if you feel that you are in a waiting room, you're just dusty in the corner, twiddling your thumbs, woe is me, pity party, and that hasn't been my experience. And I'm not saying this to romanticize the fact that this is actually an incredibly difficult season, one of the most challenging in my life. However, I've made the decision that I'm going to steward what God has given me in this season really well, and that includes part of what you've said, Pastor Erica, which is working on yourself, you know, responding to what God is doing in you during this time, not just for marriage, but for the kingdom. Do you understand? So that I'm not just, you know, oh, let me make my bed because one day I'll be married, or let me tidy up the floor. One day. No, like let me just be who God has, because actually I need to be a good steward of what God has given me. So I'm an asset to the kingdom, and I'm not just marriage. And you know, lots of the women that I come across now, I think that there is a certain maturity, because in that season your back becomes strong. You know, there's a psalm that says, I think it's actually in Habakkuk, he makes my feet like hinds feet, and he makes me to walk upon my high places. And that's something that resonated with me so much in that season, that I'm not going to come out of this weak and I'm not going to sit back and just be in the corner dull, like, oh, is it my turn yet? Because that's what, if you think about the waiting room, like in a doctor's surgery, like you get up and, oh, it's not my turn. Do you know what I mean?
Waiting for that announcement.
Exactly. And you actually miss the purpose of that season, which of course you're waiting, like of course you're looking to transition, but actually this is where I live, this is where I thrive, this is where I grow strong. This is where I connect with other women who are also in the, because it's not about being silent, oh gosh, I'm unmarried, because there are other women who are unmarried, and actually if you're silent in the corner, shame will take over quickly. The voice of the enemy will come in like a flood, and you'll be speak to other women. So these are some of the things that have really helped me in that season, because I recognise it's not anything to be ashamed of. And I think that's something that I need to say, because for me personally, I remember seeing sort of old school friends, like they'd get on you on Facebook, or you'd bump into them and they were like, oh, you know, how are you? I'm fine, I'm great. You know, and they're married with 3 kids, and like, I'm still living with my mum and dad. How about that? And you know, and then you realise, hold on a minute, before I before I get it twisted, let me make some. I'm not validated because of my job, because of being married, because of and those things are great. Do you understand? Of course, having a nice job. But the bottom line is, I need to recognise where my value comes from. It's intrinsic. You know, I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot. But I'm so excited because I watched the telly last night. I was watching the news. It was BBC News, and they showed a story of a family who've got a 4-year-old boy, and his name was Jackson. And this boy was born as a healthy baby. But as he got, I think, to the age of 1 or 2, he developed a degenerative sort of a neurological condition, and it meant that he couldn't walk, talk, feed him. He couldn't do anything for himself anymore. But I marvelled as I watched the family, and it nearly brought me to tears. In fact, it did, because the way that his mum and dad doted on him, they loved on him. He can't reciprocate that. He can't go out and play football with his dad in the back garden. He's literally just there, and his family are surrounding him and lavishing. And it dawned on me then, just really reminded me, should I say, what that intrinsic value really means. That the value that we carry, it's not because of anything that we have, anything that we do, anything that we are. That really, I need to make sure that in this time I recognise that my value comes from within. And don't get me wrong, those external things, we don't want a nice car, a nice house, of course. But if my value is based on anything external, that's your foundation is on sand.
But I think that's so powerful, Shani. Like, when you were speaking, for me, it wasn't just singleness that the waiting room applies to. You know, in that waiting, it could be that you're waiting to have children, you're waiting to transition into a career. whatever it is that you're waiting for that financial breakthrough, but in that
in a waiting
moment
room, right?
of waiting, you almost stop living. And I think that's so powerful what you said, that transition from the waiting room into the living room, because life is to be lived. And I think the waiting room, it's like you pressed a pause. And I think that you are waiting for somebody else to do it. And I think you've got to put the power into your own hands and actually be active and participate in where you're going to. And I think so many people pause in that moment and just literally are stagnant, and they wait for this next aha moment. Exactly. And I think as women, we are guilty sometimes that we're waiting to almost be saved. And I think that's so wrong, that you know, a lot of women, they don't buy a house because they're waiting to get married, because you know, you can only do it with two people because you need two incomes. No, you can go and do it yourself.
Well, you can do it. You can do it with your friends.
Of course,
you know, you don't have to wait for a guy. Like I used to say, you know, you want a ring, go buy your own. You know, you don't have to wait for a guy. And listen, just because you find a husband, he may not want to. Some guys are tight, and he may not want to lavish on you. He may just want to lavish on himself. Some men are selfish like that. And you know, you want a ring, go buy yourself one. Go save up for one. You want a new handbag, you want shoes, save up and buy your own. But you know, one of the things that I notice in waiting rooms, especially whether it's a doctor's waiting room or whether it's a waiting room for an interview for a job, people start eyeing up the competition. And you know, one of the things I remember years ago, there were a couple of girls that we used to pray with, and they were going to a conference in America. It was actually a Betty Price women's conference. And I really wanted to go. I had my faith out there. I was believing God. I prayed about it. And nothing happened. I couldn't afford it. Nothing happened. And off they went. 3 months later, one of them came back to me. And she said, well, you know, I just wanted to confess that God actually told me to pay for you to go. But we were going there to look for husbands, and we thought you were going to be a competition. So we eliminated you from the competition. And I've heard I know it's insane, because we view other women as competition. And I've heard girls say this about V2V, that, oh, they come in there and there's too many attractive women, there's too much competition. And who are we actually relying on to bring that man to us? And we cannot view each other as competition. We cannot view each other that I can't celebrate you because I view you as a competition, because should a guy come in,
push her out the way,
elbow everyone out the way, and like we make a dash for this poor guy, but we don't even, and listen, you don't even know what he is like, and we're so blinded and so fixated on this goal. I've got to get to the altar, and I'm on a clock. And so we're like ready to like elbow whoever out the way to get there.
And that all leans towards self-perception, self-esteem, like self-confidence. And if you're comparing yourself to somebody else, you know, and always dampening your own attributes, you need to work on you.
Yes.
Because a guy is not attracted to you putting yourself down all the time. He's really not. He's interested in what you bring to the table, the confidence that you bring, you know, that air of grace and elegance, and knowing that I have a voice too. I don't need to kind of hide behind my friend because actually you might prefer her more. It's about knowing who you are.
Shine for yourself.
I think it's interesting that you're saying that, because I haven't had experiences of that myself, if I'm honest with you. But what I think culturally I've had experiences of is, I think because people are aware of the fact that you're single and they want to come and give you ministration. So, like, you know, I guarantee if you speak to the women who are out there, I'm telling you, each of them had one of these experiences, if not many. So someone, you know, I don't know, someone goes up on the stage and, you know, everyone's clapping, they got married, and all of a sudden you feel a back on your hand. You're right there. Hold on. Why are you winding me? You're winding me. I'm not a newborn baby. What are you doing? And then, you know, you want to say to them, Can you move your hands? You don't. You just say, thank you, auntie. Amen. Thank you. Why are you patting me? Because the presumption is you think that I'm sitting here mourning. I'm not mourning.
Church folk,
it's too much.
Let's just call that.
It's too much.
Let's actually just call that. Let's put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Church folk can be so insensitive.
Yeah.
Totally.
So insensitive.
Yeah.
And guys, just so you know, it's not okay.
Yeah.
No,
Don't do it.
If you're single, you know you're single. You don't need to remind
anyone to remind.
Like,
it's okay.
you know your status,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you know, if I've got married and I've not had a baby yet, maybe it's not just as black and
But it's just
white.
not your business.
Don't be so insensitive.
Yeah.
Because the thing,
Yeah.
because the thing is, even if you dress nice, oh, your husband is coming. Yeah, no, that's not why I dress nicely. I dress nicely because I like to dress well,
I like to
not
dress
because I wonder if Billy will catch my eye. Nobody is out here desperate on these streets. My help comes from the Lord. No, but seriously, do you understand? Because otherwise, you're just going to fall off.
You're going to
because
cry.
You are.
You're
be-
just
literally.
you know, you like come into church and you leave there like total mess for all the wrong reasons.
Exactly.
It's a gauntlet.
Yeah.
It must be a gauntlet being single in church, because
It is.
it's where it's it's not just a rubbing it back when people actually come up to you. I think you've had that happen.
Yeah.
Share some of your experiences.
Yes, come on, Laurie.
It's
I mean, it's literally, it's those things where you think to yourself, I'm good. But then someone says something, and then if you're not careful, you'll fall for it, and you'll start to be like,
crying on
am I really good? Am I all right? Am I,
Yeah.
gosh, maybe there is something wrong with me because of that whole perception of, well, you're not married, so there's got to be something wrong with you. Forget the timing of God, forget God's timing, there's something wrong with you.
Yes.
All of your friends are married, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
How have you got to this age and you're still not married?
Yeah.
And it's like, but I'm actually good. I'm like, when it happens, it happens. I'm not sitting at home rocking and crying my eyes.
But also, not everybody desires to marry,
Well, this
and
is it.
and I
Yeah.
just think that there is so much emphasis on marriage.
Yeah.
And there are so many people that have waited,
Yeah.
and it didn't work out. And I think that it's not just as black and white. So before you force somebody or you try to push them in that direction and put that pressure on them to marry, it's not everyone's desire.
Absolutely.
And there are so many people who have waited. And it didn't work out for them, But it's just be sensitive. Just be mindful that, your comments can be damaging sometimes. And, everyone is on their own personal journey and they don't need your input. If they wanted it, they would ask for it.
And please don't send the videos on WhatsApp, 101 dating tips, how to catch your man. And it's just like the sermons that are on how to get married. And no one needs that.
But this is how crazy this whole mindset is with women. I know that there's been like pastors, so-called, that has these male pastors that come into, countries, but they come into the UK and hold conferences for women. How to get a husband, and the women flock to it by the thousands, and that's the reality of how desperate, and really that's quite pathetic, because me holding a conference about how to get married is not going to help you. At the end of the day, it's just going to frustrate you, because it pumps you up, raises your hopes, raises your expectations, and they probably take an offering for you, because you have to sow a seed for the man, because that must be why they're doing it, because they're not God. They're not God, and they cannot make that happen for you. So it's really important that we learn to enjoy life and enjoy the journey. And while you're in this waiting room, learn to develop yourself. Learn to talk. There's so many things.
The living room.
We
transitioned.
So in the living room, learn to talk. Learn to have conversations. So many single ladies are in this place where they're so shy, and even to another woman, if you try and have a conversation with them, they act so bashful. My goodness, how are you going to even engage in a conversation, because if a guy doesn't find you, he may find you attractive, and then he comes in to have a conversation and you're like just behaving really silly. He's gone. Because I think, for me, I think a lot of men are not just looking for beauty, they're looking for brains as well.
Absolutely.
So, cultivate that, broaden your sphere, broaden your interests, so that you have things that you can talk about. And even if you come across smarter than him, that's okay.
But on this journey, a lot of the times you can back up the wrong person.
Yes.
I think we've all been there, or sometimes you can feel like, okay, someone can present their best self, and a lot of the times until you actually get to know that person, you don't know what really lies underneath. And there's a difference between just being a nice guy to being a husband. There's a big difference. Not every man that is nice and that can be a gentleman or tick a few of the boxes is your husband.
It may not be husband material.
Exactly.
He may not be father material.
Exactly.
So those things are factual.
So Shani, you had an experience that we would love for you to be able to share with the audience of somebody that you did get into a relationship with that you thought, okay, this could possibly be somebody. Could you just share that with us?
Yeah, sure. So I've grown up most of my adult life as a woman in the church. So much of what I've learned about myself and growing up as a Christian girl, I learned from hearing literally from the pulpit and going away and developing my own relationship with God. And I think you hear lots of things about sort of do's and don'ts of dating. And just before I go and sort of to the main story, I'd gone on blind dates, or like a mutual friend of a friend recommendation. And someone actually put me on line dating. I won't mention who. It was Sarah Jane Goodman. Sarah Jane Goodman.
To me.
Sarah. Anyway, so I entertained it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just gonna expose it. So I did. I can't remember if it was like Christian Mingle or whatever.
Anyway, they're all old and short.
No, he wasn't old. This one went old. This one went old. But he's telling me he said no. He said he lives in South London. Okay. No, he lives in South London. And you said that, come and watch me play basketball. Okay.
Are you fine?
And what am I going to do? Just sit there, okay. And then we can go back to my place. Wait, that's not it. And then we can eat plantain and bean stew.
He never.
He did. You're trying to feed me local Ghanaian foods in your house.
To do what?
I don't know. So anyway, needless to say, I didn't go down the Christian Mingle route. Now the thing is, again, I'm just going to bring it back to myself because this is my experience, right? And I know of a couple who they've gone down that route and they're happily married, but that it'll work out for me. Yeah. In relation to what you've asked me, I think maybe, 2016, 2017, and I am living my life, but equally I'm looking to see the fruit of my prayers, the fruit of my fasting, the fruit of what I've been believing for year on year, where you touch and agree with pastor, where do you know what I mean? You're taking some of what your prayer requests to your friends, you're doing all of those things, you're declaring the word, and then you meet someone and you think, oh my God, this is it. And I think he again, it was a sort of a friend of a friend, and he didn't live here, he lived in Australia, so it was a long distance relationship. And in that time it was nice because I think one of the plus sides was that we spent a lot of time talking over the phone. So what's good for me is holding conversation, because if you can't talk, forget about it. If what you're going to do, sit there and just gaze in my eyes, get out of here. You need to hold a conversation, because if I'm going to have a conversation with you, it needs to not just be me, and it could easily be me because I talk. So it was great, and that was a really good foundation. I got to ask some pertinent questions and get to learn more about the person, and I think very early on it became evident to me that spiritually he wasn't at where I was, which is fine. And I think that for me it's fine. I know that some women might be like, well, he has to be an intercessor. Okay. That's up to you. But not that I necessarily wasn't looking for that, but God, you know what? I know that my husband's going to be different to me. Just because if it's going to work, do you understand? It's got to be different. So that's fine. But I think and I'm obviously condensing the story massively, but over a period of time, it became quite evident that he wasn't really committed to God in the way that he said he was. And towards the end of the relationship, and it was 6 months, which actually is a considerable amount of time for the very first Christian relationship that I was in at the grand old age of 35, right? So it was absolutely devastating, because he basically said, you know, I think what he said was that he doesn't want this anymore. So he didn't want to have a Christian relationship because he didn't want to go on and live as a Christian man. He thought that's what he wanted, and he didn't. And I think one of the saving graces for me was that he was far away, which was good. But what I had to do, because I recognised that if I don't do something deliberate and intentional to heal, to start the process of healing, because he's not coming back, I ain't begging, it's over, it hurts like hell, but I need to move on. So I deleted pictures, you know, expensive earrings in the bin, expensive perfume in the bin. It was almost as though I got rid of it, because I knew that if I didn't, I know what I'm like, I'll go back and be like, oh my gosh, 2 weeks later, oh no, maybe I'll text him. I'm not doing that. I even blocked him, not because he's a bad person or he's nasty, but I needed to do that for myself, so that I could give myself a chance to really get back under the wing of the Lord, where he can speak again his promises. Because at that time, and I'll never forget it, I was at school, and I was speaking on the phone to him, so it was about 8 o'clock our time and whatever time in Australia, normal time, and basically we broke up over the phone, and I was at school, and then the bell went for the first lesson. I think I told this story before. So I was like, okay, you know, all the tears are gone, you know, you put your foundation or whatever back on, went out into the corridor, like, right, children, get to lesson, tuck your shirt in, you know, put that gum in the bin, you know, you're just getting back on with it. And I'm like, right, yeah, I'm doing really well, I'm fine, like, you know, you're okay. And then a boy walks past, the naughtiest boy in the school, and he's like, Miss, are you alright? I'm like, I'm fine. I'm like, I'm fine, can you get to your lesson, please? He's like, alright, miss. And he turns around, he's like, Miss, are you sure you're okay? And I was like, oh my gosh, why is the naughtiest boy in the school on those sorts of discernment levels? Why are you coming with discernment levels, but you're naughty? I said, get to your lesson! So he went, no, but why have you got discernment and you're rude and naughty? He said, David, get your lesson now. And I walked on, I was like, you know, started crying again in the car, to run into him. I was like, damn you, David, I'm done, David. But I will say that, and obviously I've condensed the story massively, but it was awful, because you know, you don't think that you're ever going to heal. You don't ever think that your heart is going to recover. And not only that, it's not as though, you know, you break up and then someone else appears, which I don't think is healthy, but you have to get back into that place of being still, being quiet before the Lord, and just allowing him to revive that dream. And at that time I thought, my dream is dead, because I'm 35. And then I realised, says who? That's the lie of the enemy. Do you know what I mean? And there was one thing, and there still remains one thing I'm absolutely certain of, that being married and having children will appear on the timeline of my life at some point. I don't know when, so don't come up to me and say, when are you getting married? I can't tell you, because I don't know. But what I do know is that I know it's going to feature in my life. And if I had my way, maybe when I was 25 and I had my triplets and then my one little girl, because I want 3 boys and a little girl, when I was 25, and then now I'm older, I can just, you know, chill, be an older mother. The fact of the matter is, I don't have children. I'm 38, I'm not married, I'm 30. And you know what? It's okay. I can't live with regret and mourning. I've got to recognise that actually, if I really trust God, I'm in the centre of His plan, and it's okay. It's all right. But I think it was one of the most difficult periods of time in my life, because you just don't know if that was it. Like, is that it? And then you start saying, well, did I miss God? Did I, you know, lots and lots of things. And I think in even relation to sort of red flags, which is what I'm sure people would want to know, or we might want to discuss. I think at the time I was just watching very carefully, and I was speaking to God constantly about the relationship, but I think deep down I didn't see that desire for God that I'd wanted to see. And then you just think, well, maybe He will, maybe He will, and it never happens. And actually, I thank God now, and I never thought I'd say that, because at the time, you know, you're a mess, you're broken, you're finished. But I thank God now, because you want someone to want God for themselves, not because they want you. If you want me more than you want God, you got problems. And I don't want you to be my... Nah, forget that. Exactly. It was really important for that to have happened, so that I could take a step back and say, it has to be the case that the man loves God more than he loves me. And then he loves me more than he loves himself. And I might not
that's a whole new story.
But that's really important, because, you know, I think one of the things that we need to realise as women is you cannot control a person's desires.
Yep.
And, you know, this story could have been different because Shani could have gone ahead and married this guy and then find out all of this stuff, or ignore all of those signs and compromised herself in the relationship and gone ahead, and a lot of women have. And, you know, I think that's more devastating. Yes, it's painful breaking up before, but to go through the dream, which is what most women have, that dream of the white dress.
Yeah, there's one thing that you said, and you said that obviously when you guys broke up, that you were obviously able to have that time away from him and have your space. There's obviously some, especially in church, there's people that date within church that don't necessarily get to have that space and that, you know, it's hard when you're seeing somebody Monday at prayer meeting, Wednesday service, Sunday, you know, and it's, you know, and then they might go and then move on with somebody else, you know, that's obviously very devastating. What would you say to that person that is obviously trying to navigate that, because that's really hard. That's like every time you see, and it isn't that you don't want to move on, but I think it is that constant reminder and that slap in the face every time, you know, you walk, and you obviously you want to be in church, and that's obviously their church too. How would you advise them to navigate that?
I think I know my situation was slightly different because he didn't live in the country and didn't go to our church, but I think one of the things that I did, I'm fortunate enough to have breaks at half term and end of term. I literally went on retreats at that time. You know, we spoke about going away on your own. I did that. I went to Geneva, and the first half term that we broke up, I went to Geneva for like 3 days with my journal, and I just sat by this lake and journaled and cried and got it all out, and just allowed God to rebuild my shattered heart. And it was a process, and don't ever try to rush it. I remember one time looking at the dictionary definition of I think it was forget, because I said I've forgotten about him, you know, and then I think I texted one of my cousins in California. I was like, I've forgotten all about him. She's like, yeah, okay, because it's not that. It's not as simple as just saying, you know, cease to remember or neglect to, you know. So I wanted to be very clinical about it, when actually God's saying, I want you to engage with this, because I don't want this to come up later on down the line. Do you understand? When you're on your own and you think, oh, maybe I should just text him, or later on down the line when you're married, even, God forbid those things. Do you understand? So I would say that feel every part of that, but don't feel like you're alone, and reach out to other women, make yourself accountable in every other area you might do. So say, you know what, this is where I'm at, I feel like I'm really, really low at the moment, I feel like I can't go on. Be open, there's absolutely no shame, and actually when you are vulnerable in that way to other women, they can connect with you. Other women have got stories of heartbreak too, but sometimes we might not share them because we want to give the facade of being strong all the time. Who is strong all the time? You know, and when I see that actually you've gone through it and you've come through, it gives me the strength to go through as well. So that's one thing, and I think journaling helped me, like I said, going on a retreat, and it's difficult in a church environment, but again, having confidence that you can speak to and share and say, this is really hard, please help me.
But I think there's also no shame in it. You don't have to make a public announcement, you know, this is now, I'm no longer with this person, I'm now single. There's no need for that. You know, it's your private life.
The village environment of church, we feel that everybody's business is our business, and really it's not. If the person hasn't invited you into that type of conversation, we really don't have any business putting our nose in that. So if Shani's never spoke to you about dating and marriage and relationship, why do I now feel I can just come up to her and have that conversation? She didn't open that door, and that's what we need to realize. I'm purposeful in that I will share with people that I'm wanting to contribute to that subject, to that topic, and if I've not spoken to you about it, I don't want your input. And that's as simple as full stop. So if any single women, if they've not come to you and said da 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 about dating, marriage, relationship, having a baby, when they're going to have a baby, if they've never said that, it's not our business to put our nose in there. That's actually being false. It is really, because an open door is when, Laurie, you know what, I've just, been thinking about this, and I've talked to you about it. Now she has an invitation to give a comment because I've solicited that comment from her. But if I've not solicited it, please don't do that, because we have no idea where people are at, and we don't know what trips people over the edge, or where they're going to go and disappear off in the bathroom and have a cry because we were insensitive.
So true.
Yeah, absolutely. So why do we feel like some of the, in the church environment, it's so difficult? I think, from last week's topic, obviously, we talked about what men want. And I think for a lot of women, they find it so difficult to, obviously, you almost can't be the one that makes a move because you're waiting, and you're waiting to be found. Why do you feel like for church women it's so hard? Like, we can't ignore the statistics. We can't ignore the numbers of single women in church. And obviously we can't speak on behalf of the men as to why they don't just step up and make a move.
Fix up.
But why do you feel like it's such a thing amongst? Because it's not just exclusive to our church. It's across the board. There is this volume of single women that a lot of them do desire to be wives. A lot of them do desire to be mothers, and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with desiring that, but why do we feel like it's so prominent in the church environment?
You know what, I think the answer to that is multifaceted. I wish it was sort of as straightforward as saying this is the reason and this is, but I would say personally for me, I think there's a warfare to be waged for this in some instances. I'm not saying that that's the case across the board, but I think that when you've got two people who come together, two Christians who come together, and they're a formidable force in the kingdom, the enemy's going to do everything he wants, everything he can, and he wants to keep that apart. And I think that there are some women, unfortunately, where maybe generationally there are things, and this is why in my journey of being a single woman, I've fasted for 3 days or 5 days or 7 days, or have, do you understand? Not just for myself, but because there are certain things, as we know, that only come out through fasting and prayer. So I would say that there is something to be contended for, especially if you know that that's a promise God has spoken over your life. You have to stand, and you have to...
Sorry, while you're just there, how do you know, for some women, they don't know whether it's a promise, and I think that's for a lot of women, the catch-22, is it, how do I separate my desires from God's will for my life, concerning marriage, concerning children? Because some people, they do desire to be mothers, but is it, I'm going to do it naturally? Is it that I'm going to do it through adoption or through fostering? Or there's so many ways that can look like. How would you say that is something that they can discern between the two?
Again, I think it's such an individual thing, and it's not like a broad brush where you can say this is the answer to that. But I think when you have a close walk with God, He begins to birth certain desires within you, and certain desires that might not have been there when you were very young, as an infant in Christ, for example, as a young person in Christ. And I think that those desires change, and I think that it's a legitimate desire, and I'll go back to something I thought about earlier, that it is legitimate desire, but ultimately when God made Adam and Eve at the beginning, having babies and sex wasn't this sordid thing. It's not hidden in the back of the book somewhere. It's right at the beginning in Genesis. It's an integral part of creation. So I think that is evidently an intrinsic part of what God wants to do on the earth. And therefore, that's the plan of God. I'm included in that. Do you understand? And I think unless you opt out and you say, actually, I don't have any desire for that, and then you come into a culture where everybody wants to do it, you don't have to buy into that if that's genuinely
good.
I mean, but I don't know of huge amounts of women who are like that. And what I will say is, if that is you, it's okay. And I think we've got to be okay with people being different to us in that sense. Absolutely. Where you might come across a woman who wants to get married, but she don't want to cook. She don't want to. She might meet a man who's got to bring in a professional chef. I don't know. Do you understand? And I know that might be counterculture to what we think in terms of you've got to be able to, and you've got to be able to do that. But actually, if this is something, like I said earlier, is on the timeline of their life that God is going to bring in, you don't know that man who's got. He might be the chef.
Some men are good cooks.
Better.
I want to ask a question I'm posing to both of you. How do you avoid the desperation trap and not become impatient in the living room?
I think that it goes back to what Shani, what you were saying before about living your life, Because when you're focusing on just getting married, it becomes this obsession that just kind of takes over everything you do. Oh, I'm going to go here because I might meet someone, and that could be where my husband is. Or I'm going to wear this because I might attract my husband. But when you're so focused on building yourself as a person and fulfilling your purpose, whatever that purpose is, you might decide, oh, I'm going to start a business. You might have a little side hustle or something like that. You know, just focusing on other things, not letting marriage be the be all and end all. Because when you make something so big and like this idol in your life, it then does take over. And I've been there. I have been there. I can be honest. Yes, I've been there. I've been there where every day I was like, am I going to meet somebody? Maybe not every day, but like, you know, every week. Maybe if I go here, I'm going to meet somebody. Maybe if I do this, I'm going to meet somebody. And it does. It takes over every single thing that you do or think about. And when you become obsessed with something, you then make foolish decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I like the word you use, idol. And I think a lot of people have used, this has become their idol. We actually end up thinking more about it than we do God. We are more fixated on it than we are with the things of God, and whatever we magnify or fixate on more than God, that becomes our God. And that's a dangerous situation to have in your life, where you've made this whole taboo about marriage as you've created this idol that you now worship. And the devastating thing is that when you do have that, when you do find that, you see so many women that are not. It's not what we thought it was. It's not quite what the fairy tale that we dreamt up. I remember a couple of my single friends when I was married, and they read all these books, you know, all these Christian books on marriage, and they thought it was going to go like a textbook. He's going to pray with me, and I know a lot of women do that. He's going to be my prayer partner, and we're going to do Bible study together, and they have all this spiritual stuff, and then they find out the guy doesn't want to pray with them. He doesn't even want to pray, period. And he definitely doesn't want to do Bible study with you, doesn't want you. And we have these textbook ideas, but it doesn't necessarily play out the way we've, this fiction that we've created in our minds. And we need to come back to reality and recognize that this individual has choices that they're going to make that we probably won't like.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Dan?
Yeah. I'm just going to go off the back of something, Pastor, you just said, and I think it's about being open as well. And I think I was saying it earlier before we came on, that I think as I've gotten older, I've become less sort of, you know, my precious, you know, where you want this thing. And now it's like, you know what, God, because, not that I stopped desiring it, but because it wasn't my be-all and end-all, as you said, it doesn't have this cult-like status in my mind. And because I know it is going to feature in my life, just because I know that I can chill. I can work on other things. And it's like what you were saying, was that you can actually start living your life and have fun. Get around and not be compartmentalised where because I'm single, I can only have single friends. I've got single friends, I've got married friends. You know, you live a varied life, and one that isn't wooden and static and stagnant. And you put yourself in a box where, you know, because you're believing for this thing, and it's taken such a long time, and I know it is. And there are women who are older than we, older in their late 40s, in their late 50s, so we're still waiting. And it's hard, because you see a little 14-year-old girl who you just got saved last week. Now you're getting married. How? It's hard, right? It's hard.
I think that's the thing. I think at that moment, I got married only last year. I was 35 when I got married, and it is those moments that are really tough sometimes. But I think also you have to be in a place where you are not desperate, because when God speaks to you and he gives you that confirmation that this is, and he does give you that confirmation, girls, he will give you that perfect peace that this is the person that you're supposed to spend the rest of your life with. I think you need to be able to hear him, and you have to remove all the confusion, all the noise that, you know, sometimes you fill your life with, and it's ensuring that you are in the will of God and that you are on the God-given path that he's put you on, because we can be busy being busy, and busy doing the wrong thing. So don't get that twisted that now I must just be busy for the sake of being busy. Ensure that you're still on track and you're still attuned to where he wants you to be. And part of that is, you know, if there's nothing wrong with with having fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions amongst Christians, that we're not allowed to have fun. You can still have fun, you can still go out, you can still live your life, but just make sure that you are in God's perfect will, because when he does bring that person, you need to be ready. Because listen, when it happens, your whole life is going to change, and you need to be ready. And you can't be a all over the place kind of girl, because when you have a husband, you have to be able to take care of him. Which means that you need to have your emotions in check. You can't be a scatty girl. Like you have to be able to be a wife, and being a wife isn't just a title; it's a role that you play. And you know, make sure in this process, in this period of your living room, that you are being the best possible version that you can be. You know, you're going to be somebody's wife one day, you're going to be somebody's mother one day, which means that you cannot be selfish. If your whole world revolves around you, you're not ready, because all the desires and all your rights go out the window, because you're now living with somebody else, you're having to cater to somebody else, and it's not just about you, it's not just your needs, it's somebody else's needs that you have to take into account as well.
So good.
And I think it's that place as well of developing yourself, your emotions, to a place of maturity, because you need to be a mature, emotionally mature person when it comes to marriage, because it's one of those areas, I tell you what, if you've not grown in forgiveness, walking in love, not holding
remove the stubbornness.
Oh my gosh!
That's a real thing.
You're going to be hurt every day. You're going to be offended. He will upset you every day, because the way men are made up, what that word that they said, and you're like devastated, and like you've meditated and your day's ruined because he said something to you, and he's gone about his business. He didn't even notice that he upset you. He didn't even know that he upset you. The only time he knew that he upset you was your face when he came home.
The whole day's gone.
And you know, you just got to develop this thick skin. So learn to have that now. Yeah, you need crocodile skin to be married, and you do need to be in control of your emotions, because if you've not conquered that in marriage, you still have to work on it there, but you're going to really struggle if you're one of those people that and I see that so many times with single women, regardless of their age, they get in the church environment, we're so touchy. It's like every minute we're upset about this, and just the way super sensitive. We just get upset because someone raised their voice at us, someone shouted, someone told us off. Get over it, because your husband could do all of that. And you've got to suck it up, and you just got to get on with it. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting every single moment. So there is that place of developing yourself. Emotional development, maturity is a criteria that you need to carry you to that next level.
And conflict resolution is a major thing in marriage. You can't
be sulky and hold on to stuff.
No.
Oh my goodness.
Conflict, I think for me, conflict resolution has to be like one of the top things that you have to. It's a skill. Where that I had to develop. I remember at the beginning when I got married, I'd be like, if he said like one mean thing, or like he said it like he said it in the wrong way, I would literally be in bed like I would cry, and I would be and I wanted him to feel bad. I wanted him to feel bad, but it was we had to learn how to communicate in a way that we could both be heard, and that we could both appreciate each other. We may not necessarily agree with everything, but we have to come to a place of peace for the sake of our marriage, and that's an amazing skill to learn. And it takes time, but it's an amazing, and it can start with your siblings or family, that
people in church,
you learn how to walk together in agreement. It shouldn't always be that it's like everyone feels like they have to walk on eggshells around you. Because that's not something that you can take into marriage. Otherwise, it's going to be a horror story, and it's going to be awful. So learn to deal with that stuff now, while you can, rather than having to learn the hard way in marriage. And you're going to make somebody's life hell in the process. So deal with it now.
And don't think, girls, just because you get married that he's Christian, I'm Christian, you know, that's it. Once we're married, that's it. No, there's so many. No, there's so many. Unfortunately, there are so many stories where couples have got married and they ended up divorcing because they just didn't have that right information. So don't just treat this lightly. The information we're sharing is to help you to move from the waiting room into the living room, help you to manage and grow and mature in some of those things, you know, that we can carry into marriage. And sometimes we can focus and fixate on tidying the house, learning to do laundry, learning to cook, and those are all great. But learning to do conflict management and all of those things, managing our emotions, those are key.
Yeah, so we're out of time.
We're out of time.
So quick. We hope you guys enjoyed today's this episode. Thank you so much, Shani, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We are now in the living room. There's no more being stuck in the waiting room. We are going to live our best lives. Next week we have another amazing episode for you. We're talking about perception versus reality. So perception versus reality. So that's going to be really interesting. So don't forget to join us next week. Thursday at 8:30 is our season finale. It's our last episode in this season. So don't forget to join us next week. And we will see you next week Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Bye.
Bye. Bye.